Hi, I'm Keith Mahoney with the New York City DEP, and I typically go through the presentation very quick anyway, so it shouldn't be a problem. The first thing is just to put it into perspective, the New York City system. We have 14 treatment plants with a design capacity of about 2 billion gallons per day. We typically treat about 1.2 billion gallons per day dry weather. We have 4 CSO retention facilities. We have 96 pump stations and about 3,300 miles of combined sewers, 2,200 miles of sanitary, and 1,800 miles of separate storm sewers. In our preparation of the hurricane, we established a 24-hour incident command center staffed by senior DEP managers on Saturday, October 27th. The planning collection facilities personnel drilled on evacuation, sheltering in place, and power down protocols. We prepositioned mobile hydraulic pumps and generators for quick deploy. We scheduled additional staff to work during the hurricane. We prepped all the plant emergency generators to start up in case of power loss. We topped off all chemicals and fuel at all the treatment plants and also for mobile generators. We had sandbags at all the plants. We deployed them so they can sandbag critical infrastructure, particularly electrical systems. We notified the electrical and mechanical contractors to be on standby. We had people coming in from all over the country ahead of the storm to help us out with this. We tested communication systems and used radios as well as cell phones and hard-wired phone lines. And again, we also had operators stationed at all the key facilities on October 29th prior to the storm. The status of the pump stations and treatment plants during the storm, there were several plants experienced flooding. The worst of all was Rockaway. It was completely submerged during the storm. The whole Rockaway Peninsula basically went under. Oakwood Beach plant was basically submerged, but it didn't go into any of the tanks, luckily, and went right up to the building. So the building itself was just like a little island surrounded by water. In terms of plants that actually were down during the storm, the headworks, only 3 plants went down. Rockaway had the longest outage. There was a short outage in North River, and there was also some issues at Newtown Creek, particularly the Manhattan pump station. And again, 51 pump stations had some flooding issues, and primary issues with those pump stations were feeders going down. Status of the pump stations and the treatment plants after the storm, DEP crews and contractors were working around the clock to restore all the major operations, except for Rockaway. As I said, this was the most severely hit. Extremely high flows continued all the plants, but 2 days after, all the treatment plants, aside from Rockaway, were up and running with some level of treatment. The Oakwood Beach plant was running as of November 1st. We had that one up and running. I'm sorry, November 2nd. Except for a little pump station. So we had 99% of our wastewater flow being treated at that point by November 2nd. These slides I'll go through quick. This just gives an illustration of some of the damage that was experienced at some of the treatment plants, as well as the Manhattan pump station I'll go into. But again, Rockaway is most severely impacted. And typical things that were impacted with flooding, all the basements and galleries, all the electrical systems were short out. So it was primarily pumping all that water out immediately after the storm with submersible pumps, drying out all the electrical, and replacing wires and conduits in kind. Coney Island, this is illustration of the digester building, some of the flooding and all. And again, it's typically electrical is the most severely damaged during this storm. This is the thickener building. Manhattan pump station, again, this one went under. This pump station feeds flow from Manhattan to the Newtown Creek treatment plant. And the Trident actuator was controlled and destroyed. And again, the control panel, electrical systems were all destroyed. And since the storm, we've been assessing the damage. There's about $90 million throughout the city in damage attributed to Hurricane Sandy.
What was that number again?
About $90 million right now. Basically, the lessons learned after the storm. DEP's preparedness was generally worked out well. There was no injuries, and operation restored fairly quickly considering the historic surge associated with Hurricane Sandy. We're in the process of issuing new guidance. We'll be raising all the electrical. Right now, we're going to, based on FEMA maps, we're estimating that's going to be about 2.5 feet higher than the current 100-foot flood. I think it's 10.8, so it almost coincides with that storm surge. So all electrical will be raised to that elevation or where possible. All conduits and junction boxes will be watertight. We'll be working, a lot of our pump stations, and 96 of them are in either private areas, in other municipality areas, so we have to work with them to get agreements so we can relocate electrical above ground. Sandbags had some benefit. I know at Port of Richmond they had a tremendous benefit. They saved one of the electrical substations, but again, in many of the local pump stations, they had some issues. Some of the sandbags disappearing prior to the storm. We're looking at maybe doing other things like MTA had it, where they had an inflatable dam they used. So we're thinking about maybe using that at some building, maybe having like watertight hatches onto submarine type hatch. Again, one thing we didn't really anticipate was a gasoline shortage and the significant disruption to bridge, tunnel, and subway systems. Trouble getting workers to the plant. Some of the workers who drove to the plant unfortunately had their cars go underwater when they went to the Rockaway plant to report. So in the future, we would have stations outside of the treatment plant, outside the flood zone, and bus people in. And again, we didn't anticipate the utility power outage of 12 days in some areas. And all the systems have, all the main treatment plants and the big pump stations have emergency generators. Other ones we use mobile generators. But again, we have to supply all the oil there. And when the station's out, we don't have full treatment when we're using the generators. We just do critical systems. So we didn't really anticipate that 12-day outage in some of the areas. And that's it. Thank you. I think I'm under the time.
I'm sharing time with Keith, so I'm going to try to be very quick here. Bridget McKenna, PBSC's Chief Operating Officer, couldn't be with us today, but she gave me a list of PBSC's updates in terms of impacts by Sandy. PBSC experienced a 12-foot storm surge, which was 5 feet above our seawall, and as a result, we lost power and we had extensive flooding due to that storm surge. As a result, we needed to bypass all flows to the treatment plant. DEP immediately issued a water conservation notice to the municipalities in the PBSC service area during the time of the bypass to the plant, and we requested that our industries also curtail or hold their discharges if possible. All flows came back to PBSC on November 3rd, and we're receiving primary treatment and disinfection at that time. We stopped sludge acceptance from outside haulers, and we will need DEP approval for sludge return. DEP requires additional analytical data before they permit us to begin accepting trucked-in liquid waste again. We expect those results to be in sometime this week. We've been meeting secondary treatment permit compliance measures as of November 23rd. And we are in compliance with TSS and BOD standards as of that date. The plant is currently operating in manual mode while we continue to repair and replace the damaged equipment. As Keith said, this was a saline storm surge, so the salt water is corroding all of the electrical components, which all need to be baked out and replaced. So it's a very extensive process. EPA and DEP compliance people were at PBSC daily through the end of November. DEP personnel continue to come periodically to the plant. EPA sent representatives from Region 6 who dealt with the Katrina catastrophe. FEMA was also on site intermittently. The Army Corps was at PBSC for weeks doing pump outs. They sent their unwatering SWAT team, which is the same folks that pumped out the Holland Tunnel. We had an estimated $200 to $300 million in damages to our plant alone. We're meeting with FEMA to determine engineering controls in order to mitigate future flooding. And all of the updates are posted on PBSC's website, www.nj.gov/PBSC, including all of the measures that we took in anticipation of the storm. They're posted up there. I don't know if anyone else is on the phone from the other discharger group agencies. Anyone from NCUA? No. I don't have any updates for the other plants. Any of those, like I said, that were impacted do have updates on their websites. You could look at them directly. If you have any questions for other groups or for PBSC, you could always email me and I'll try to find answers for you. Thank you.